Ladies and gentlemen, good to see everybody here tonight. I hope you're staying warm. It's freezing cold out there. So we need to have a fireplace installed in here or something. We'll make it like a Cracker Barrel. So welcome everybody. If you would please remember to silence your electronic devices. And if you would please stand and join us in the invocation and the pledge. Lord, we ask you to bless our meeting tonight. Grant us wisdom and compassion to make sound decisions for our amazing city. We pray for all members of our community tonight. May they have a joyous holiday season surrounded by family and friends. We pray especially for those who are alone this time of year, that they feel the comfort of your presence. And we thank you for our terrific employees who make our city such a special place to live all year long. We pray that they always feel our appreciation for their commitment and passion. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So for those of you who may not watch or attend our meetings regularly, I wouldn't blame you. We have a new tradition we started a year or so ago, I guess it's been, and that is to begin each meeting with a fun or interesting or historical fact concerning our city or our region. And so we rotate that duty, but tonight it falls to me. And so rather than give you one good story, because Councilmember Schistler gave a really good one at our last meeting, and that one's going to be hard to beat. So I have a couple of brief ones to share with you that I thought were rather interesting. It's amazing when you get looking this stuff up, because you start looking for something and then 3 days later you realize that you're just engrossed in all these old minutes, and it's fascinating. So as you know, I think everybody knows that the city was incorporated by the Florida legislature in the spring session of 1925. And the act that established the city of Temple Terrace was signed by the governor in May of 1925. Sometime after May of 1925, there was a special session of the Florida legislature called. And I don't know exactly when it was. It doesn't say, but it had to be sometime before the fall session. And so in this special session of the state legislature, they passed a few laws, and one of them was to extend the city of Tampa and enable them to expand their limits and take over the area that was incorporated by Temple Terrace. So the city, and this law was going to take effect January 1st of 27. So they gave us a year and a half to plan for our demise, I suppose. The act was called this is the title of the act. An act to extend the corporate limits of the city of Tampa to include the territory now included within the corporate limits of the city of Temple Terrace, and to provide for the payment of the bonded and floating indebtedness of the city of Temple Terrace. So the city fathers at that time, I don't know exactly I'd love to know what the conversations that they had. I'd love to know the backstory to this, because I'm sure there had to be one. But in November of 1926, which was almost a whole year after this, the city commission directed the city attorney to file a lawsuit. So the city was less than 2 months away from being dissolved, and they filed a lawsuit, which I would love to be able to find this lawsuit. I don't know if it's digitized or not, probably not, but ultimately, the case went all the way to the Florida Supreme Court, and the city of Temple Terrace prevailed, and the law was declared unconstitutional. So I might mention this to Mayor Castor the next time I see her. The next fact concerns a really interesting guy, and I was going to tell you a little bit about him, but I won't, because we have a lengthy agenda, and I know that you're eager to speak on your item. But the third mayor of Temple Terrace was a fellow named Jack Breger, or J.M. Breger, he was often called. There's a street, Breger Drive, named after him. Very interesting guy. I don't have time to tell you all the details, but really interesting fellow. I wish I could have known him. But in 1929, in June of 1929, remember that, June, this is June of 1929, the city judge resigned because he moved out of the city of Temple Terrace. And the city commission appointed Mr. Breger to be the city judge for the remainder of the term. 4 months later, in October, the mayor, Cody Fowler, resigned because he too was moving out of the city. The city commission then appointed Mr. Breger to be the mayor for the remainder of the term. Now, I don't know if he was judge and mayor at the same time. I'm not clear on that. You couldn't do that today, but in 1929, I'm not sure. So he went on to be very instrumental in the history of Temple Terrace during his time in office, but I just want to give you a little snapshot of the kind of guy that Mayor Breger was. And so I'm going to read this in his words. This is his words written in 1957 and 1958. He tells this story better than I can paraphrase it. He says, the hunting of birds during the day and rabbits at night by spotlight mounted on cars created a real hazard since the hunters fired indiscriminately without regard to the proximity of homes. The writer well remembers when he was startled out of a sound sleep about 11 o'clock one night by a shotgun blast within what probably was not more than 50 feet from his home. Drawing on his bathrobe on the run, he got into his car and gave chase. Realizing that someone was after them, the hunters doused the spotlight and headed in the general area of what is now number 9T. I don't know where that is, but I'm sure you do. The writer doused his headlights and waited at the clubhouse. Presently, the car came along Inverness Avenue with the spotlight sweeping both sides. When they got opposite the clubhouse, the writer gave chase and ran the car to the curb just north of Tommy Bennett's store, which I believe was at Glenarvan and Bullard. 4 young men, each with a shotgun, were in an open car, and the writer informed them that they were under arrest and demanded a cash bond of $10. They acted tough and wanted to know what authority the writer had to stop them. He informed them that he was the mayor with police authority, and if they would follow him, he would convince them, but warned them if they tried to escape, they would also be charged with resisting arrest, whereupon they wilted, but stated they did not have $10 among them. The writer then demanded one of the guns as security for their appearance in court the next morning, and they turned over an old single-barrel manually cocked shotgun so old that the writer would have been afraid to fire it. It was worth at the most probably $5, but the writer felt that the hunters had been sufficiently impressed and didn't want to push his luck too far by demanding a better gun. So I don't know if he was the judge they saw in the next morning. I'm not sure what came of that, but those were different times. I don't think the police chief would look well upon the mayor these days running around chasing down, So that's our fun fact, or a couple of them. So let's see, our first order of business is approval of the minutes from our December 5th council meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
The discussion of the minutes, any corrections? Okay, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, no nays, minutes are adopted. So let me look. Next on the agenda is a section for persons wishing to be heard on items not on the agenda or items on the consent agenda. We do have some requests to speak, and it looks like we have some more pending. So most of you folks who have been here previously, I see that you're here to speak on an agenda item, so you won't come up at this time. You'll be speaking on Okay, there is a 30-minute time limit for all public comment. If it takes longer than 30 minutes at this section of the meeting, we stop the public comment so that we can move on and get through our agenda, and then we will resume the public comment at the end of the meeting. That way we can get through our agenda. We do have a 3-minute time limit for each speaker, and we ask that you begin by stating your name and city of residence. Okay, so I do have a few. Franklin
Perez, sir.
There we go. Thank you. Yes, sir. Welcome. Good evening, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I guess I'll start now. My name is Franklin Perez, and I live in Seminole County, Florida. If you have made any pro-Israel resolutions in the past, I ask that you rescind them all. Enough is enough. Israel is a Jewish supremacist apartheid state that has been committing ethnic cleansing and human rights abuses against Palestinians for 75 plus years, as per reports from reputable human rights organizations like B'Tselem, Human Rights Watch, and Amnesty International. Stop supporting Israel. Stop giving it weapons. Stop giving it money. And condemn it for what it is, an apartheid state. Many human rights experts refer to Gaza as an open-air concentration camp. The Israeli apartheid regime's prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, has invoked genocidal language against Palestinians in the Gaza concentration camp by referring to an ancient biblical passage in the Old Testament, comparing Palestinians to the Amalekites that must all be put to death: men, women, children, babies. The Israeli apartheid regime's defense minister, Yoav Gallant, has dehumanized Palestinians by referring to Palestinians in the Gaza concentration camp as human animals. Miko Peled, Israeli Jew, son of a famous Israeli Jew general, ex-Zionist occupation forces enforcer, and Palestinian rights activist, has stated that the Israeli army is the best terrorist group in the world. Ex-Israeli Jew Zionist occupation forces pilot, Yonatan Shapira, has stated that the Israeli army is a terrorist organization run by war criminals. At this point, due to scattered Zionist-only occupier settlements in the West Bank, the only fair solution to the Israel-Palestine conflict is a one-state solution where everyone, Jew and Palestinian, has equal rights. That's what is referred to as a free Palestine from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. All U.S. government entities should be pressuring the Israeli apartheid regime to move towards such a free Palestine. That includes the dismantling of the Gaza concentration camp. The refrain that Israel has the right to self-defense is a red herring. The real question is, does Israel have the right to use force to maintain an illegal occupation, an apartheid state that commits ethnic cleansing and human rights abuses against Palestinians? The clear answer is no. Under international law, Israel has no right of self-defense when it is the oppressor and occupier, while Palestinians do have the right to physically resist and defend themselves against their oppressor and occupier, the Israeli apartheid regime. Our tax dollars should be going back to our own communities, not to support unrelenting bombing in Gaza. No more money for Israel's crimes. I request that the Temple Terrace City Council introduce a resolution to stand with Palestinians around the world in demanding an end to the siege of Gaza, a permanent ceasefire, and an end to all U.S. aid to Israel, military, economic, and political. Ceasefire now, ceasefire now, ceasefire now. Thank you.
Shahab Ahmed.
Good evening, council members, mayor. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I want us to imagine for a moment being transported back to the carefree days of childhood. I want us to remember the joy of playing with our friends, the warmth of family gathering, the comforting embrace of loved ones. We all carry these precious moments with us to this day, and it's a testament to the innocence and vulnerability of our younger selves. But childhood is not always sunshine and laughter. Many of us in those tender years have also encountered moments of fear, of helplessness. Perhaps it was a scraped knee that brought us tears. Perhaps it was a thunderstorm that sent shivers down our spine. And perhaps for some of us it was a more profound experience, a brush with danger that left us feeling lost and alone. When I was 6 years old, I found myself swept away by a powerful wave at the beach in Jacksonville. I was with my family. The salty water filled my lungs, panic clawed at my throat, and for a terrifying moment, I was utterly helpless. I can only imagine the countless children across the globe who face similar struggles right now. a feeling of helplessness like we all once were, their innocent lives threatened by forces beyond their control. This is why I stand before you today, not only as a student studying his PhD in education, but as a fellow human being, a witness to the fragile nature of life, and a believer in the power of compassion. When I was on the beach and I started drowning, a stranger came to my aid. I don't know who he was. Perhaps I never will. But he rescued me when I was drowning. Just as we as a community have the power to extend a helping hand to those in need. The children who are caught in the crossfire of this conflict, the ones battling hunger and disease, the ones whose cries for help echo in the vast expanse of suffering. Council members, I urge us, let us be the heroes, not for our own children, but for all the children who yearn for a safe haven, a nourishing meal, a loving embrace. Let us answer this call, not with empty promises, but with concrete action, with unwavering commitment, and the boundless compassion that resides within each and every one of us. Christmas this year has been canceled in Bethlehem, in the birthplace of Jesus, because of the ongoing conflict. Tonight, we are going to be sending an email regarding a draft for a resolution. We've worked very hard with our community, with stakeholders, and allies to create a draft that is inclusive of all our communities and against all bigotry. And to conclude, I'd like to only echo the words of our beloved Fred Rogers. You've made today a special day by just your being you. There's no person in the whole world like you, and I like you just the way you are. Thank you.
Amanda Alshek.
Alley. We did this last time.
Okay.
All right. So, I'm here again, not as a public speaker, so forgive me if I am nervous or if I say anything out of line. I feel like I've been forced to become a public speaker in the past 70 days due to what's been going on. The last time I came here, I spoke about the 6-year-old that was murdered, that was stabbed multiple times, like I think 26 times in Chicago. And since then, nothing has changed. I mean, there have been more attacks on Muslims in other states, and nothing has changed with what's going on overseas. We are now up to 22,000 people murdered, and almost half of them being children. So, like 10,000 children. I don't know what the capacity is for this room. Maybe 100. So that, I mean, it's just an outrageous number that continues to grow every single day. There's been 98 journalists that have been targeted by Israel, which is a war crime. The carpet bombings continue, which is a war crime. They thought that we would be quiet because there was a humanitarian pause where the Palestinians weren't even allowed to go back to their homes to get any belongings. They were shot at if they tried to go back to the north. They are now bombing the south of Gaza. So at the last meeting that I attended, they were only bombing the north, and they had told people move to the middle part. They have moved from the middle part to the south part, and I think a portion of it on the east side, and are bombing that. 2 days ago, it was announced that Israeli occupation forces bulldozed over people in tents, burying them alive. This is like, honestly, at this point, I feel like we are a joke to not only, like, the community here, but to the community abroad. We are the only country who voted no for a ceasefire. And I mean, it's just despicable. And I feel so terrible that my tax money is going towards a genocide. Not only that, but now we're having bills here that are that are making it seem that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, and they are not equal. We have no issues with Jewish people. A lot of our allies are Jewish. I mean, there have been Jews that have shut down bridges across the country demanding a ceasefire. And all that being said, we can't criticize their government. We're not allowed to criticize our government. And where's the protection for us Muslims as well? We're allowed to criticize the government. Yeah, yeah. But anyways, where's our protection and ceasefire now? Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is a resolution approving speed humps on Knights Branch Street between Temple Terrace Highway and Bullara Drive. Our city engineer, Brian McCarthy, is here to explain.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor,
Good evening.
City Council. Brian McCarthy, City Engineer, and tonight I'm here seeking approval to construct speed humps along Knights Branch Street between Temple Terrace Highway and Bullara Drive. The background is a resident petition was received requesting speed humps along Bullara Drive, Knights Branch Street, Holly Ridge Place, and Kings Ridge Drive. As part of our speed hump policy, city staff would evaluate the need for speed humps if more than 50% of the properties along that specific street signed the petition. Bullara Drive and Knights Branch Street met the required signatures and were evaluated, while Holly Ridge Place and Kings Ridge Drive did not. So staff reviewed the crash history, the traffic volumes, and the speed data, and based upon those three factors, staff is recommending Knights Branch Street met the required criteria, while Bullara Drive did not for speed humps. As part of our public outreach, staff notified residents of the city council meeting as well as if the criteria were met along both of those two streets. If city council approves, staff would proceed with the installation of speed humps. As a temporary measure, staff is recommending a speed cushion. When the road is resurfaced, or if a nearby or adjacent road is resurfaced, we'll look at installing the permanent speed humps as part of those resurfacing efforts. So in the figure on the screen, in the plus signs along Knights Branch Street would be some of the approximate locations. Please keep in mind that these aren't the permanent locations. Staff will go out into the field to make sure that the speed hump locations aren't nearby an intersection, a driveway, or fire hydrants. Those are some of the things that the Hillsborough County recommends we stay away from. The Hillsborough County also recommends that speed humps are installed every 300 to 500 feet in order to be effective in calming traffic. And here's an example of a speed cushion that the city is looking at purchasing. This is used in the city of Tampa. It's a rubber speed cushion. This is on John Bell Jr. Drive. It's a speed cushion that's wide enough to slow down traffic, but at the same time not to slow down fire trucks in their response. And a figure I found in online is just to give you an idea for a fire truck. It's again wide enough for a vehicle to traverse over, but not so wide enough that a truck should need to slow down if there is an emergency. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. We do have some members of the public who wish to address the council on this. First is Fran Johns. Good evening, ma'am.
Yes, good evening. Thank you for having us. The reason that we'd like to speak about this, and hi, Brian, finally meet your face. Okay. When we moved there, I was the third house in Roland Terrace. It was a one-lane highway. And of course, with the work that you know, the police, everybody has to do now, we're so busy everywhere with speeding. Well, when they called me the last time that they spoke with me, and they said that Knight Branch was the one that they were looking at. Well, when you turn in off of Temple Terrace Highway, you turn in to Knight's Branch. And unfortunately, they can't be out there 24/7 to the hours that we see. They speed down. They use it for like a racetrack. When they get to the end of the road, they turn right to Bullara. They don't even stop sometimes. It's just gotten unbelievable. We're only 4 roads with 84 houses, and then we have River Run behind us with 200. It's too much. We don't have 3 minutes to tell you how all of this came about, that we began to get all of the traffic, and we still do. We had a gentleman get knocked off his bike because of a driver. We've lost some precious animals that have been out. But the main thing is that we desperately need those because the traffic now that we have double lanes, more houses built there, and it's gotten very dangerous, very dangerous. Yes, I happen to live on Holly Ridge, which we don't get the traffic, but I'm sure if we get the speed bumps, we'll start getting it. They cut through. They don't go to the back because they are, how all this got started is because of a lady years ago, due to a stick child or children playing, she fought. They have 200 people that came out. They got those speed bumps, okay? With only 84 homes, and we did each step that we were told to do, and then that's why I'm here, is we're pleading. We really need Knights Branch and Bullara Drive. We need both of those roads at different times of the day. And I'm up early, very early, and I've been outside. I feed feral cats. It's unbelievable the people that are going to work using our streets, and they're just flying out because early in the morning they're probably trying to get to a job before all the traffic gets on the highway. There is more I'd like to tell you, but I don't want to go over 3 minutes if someone else wants to speak. We are desperate. It's only getting worse, and I understand there's going to be more homes that or something else they're going to be building nearby. So all of that is cut through Rolling Terrace. Please listen to us. Give us both roads.
Thank you, Mr. Johns. Next is Altrell Ellis. Good evening.
Good evening. I live on Nice Branch Street, and I saw from the diagram that the gentleman proposed 4 speed bumps along Nice Branch, but I proposed only 3 along Nice Branch and move the 4th one onto Kings Ridge. When they come into the subdivision, they turn onto Kings Ridge and they speed up and go around to the next corner. There's a pump on Kings Ridge, but it's further back. They need to put one of the speed bumps when you first turn into Kings Ridge Road and 3 along Nice Branch Street. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next is Eddie Vance. Good evening, Mr. Vance.
Oh, good evening, guys. First, I want to apologize. I missed the first part of your presentation, Brian, and I know you can't respond to me, but I do want to learn a little bit more about why they didn't qualify afterwards, if we can. I'm going to echo what Audra and Fran said. Some of you, well, honestly, nobody was here 20 years ago, but we were here 20 years ago before council asking for the same thing, and that's when we got the original speed humps put in. We actually talked about closing off the intersection between Capwood and Kings Ridge Drive. But due to safety reasons, we couldn't do that. Fire department needed to be able to have access, and that's totally understandable. I don't think the speed humps themselves are enough. As the ladies said, I mean, we jog our neighborhood, and there's constantly cars speeding, zooming around the corner. I've almost been hit myself several times, and it's various times of the day. There's a gray Camaro that heads out at 6:30 in the morning, speeding through the neighborhood. There's other cars that just constantly come back and forth down Kings Ridge Drive. And I do agree, Holly Ridge is probably going to be the negative benefactor if we only put them on Knights Branch. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vance. Lindsay Weber. Good evening.
How are you? I'm Lindsay. I'm also speaking about the speed bumps. So the development behind us is River Run, and I'm fighting for speed bumps also because on River Run there's a house that's like the Christmas house, and it kind of makes a spectacle of our whole neighborhood. And the traffic is backed up through 78th Street all the way to Bullard Parkway, and people go through the neighborhood. There's one-way signs up that they put up. And they come out Kings Ridge, they come out Holly Ridge, and they do this on Halloween, they do this on Christmas, they do this for all holidays, they turn their house into a haunted house, and it just kind of, it's nice for people to see, but not for the residents. And if we had speed bumps, that would also kind of control the traffic coming out our area, because our area is the only way you could exit, because 78th Street is completely backed up for everybody waiting to see this Christmas house because you have to wait for the entire song to play and then your car moves. So they do put one-way signs and the exit is through Rolling Terrace. Just to add to Fran said, I saw the man that was hit by on his bicycle on Knights Branch Street that day. The ambulance was there. It was kind of scary. I picked up a kitten off the side of the road once, a little black kitten that had been hit by a car. So it's scary to walk my dogs. It's scary. Speed bumps would really help. That's it.
Thank you. All right, Mr. McCarthy, that's the last request I have to speak. I'm sure we have some questions. Council members. Who wants to start? We'll start at this end. Councilmember Abel.
So one of the people who spoke asked about the number of proposed speed cushions on the four on, what was the name?
On Knights Branch.
On Knights Branch. Can you explain the reasoning for the placement of those speed humps?
Yes.
Please.
So the county recommends doing every 300 to 500 feet in spacing, and Knights Branch Street from Temple Terrace Highway to Bullara Drive is approximately 1,100 feet. So if it was 300 feet approximately, you're looking at about 4 of them along that stretch.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so can you go back to the criteria that you used for denying a specific location? If 51%, if you didn't get 51% of the street, the petition agreeing to it, then it doesn't occur?
So to start our evaluation process, our policy is that if 51% of the houses along that particular street had signed up for wanting the speed humps, then we would further evaluate it. If it was less than the 50%, then the homes or that street segment was not evaluated.
Okay, I guess my question is, I know I've done this, going door to door to get petitions and, for speed humps in Orange River. I did this 35 years ago. But if we did, I guess my question is, did we get the entire population of everybody in the street? And it's not your responsibility to do that. I realize it's the citizens' responsibility to do that. But did we not reach the 51 because we didn't get to everybody? Or were there people that were never asked that you know of?
I think the city manager's like.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Councilmember Schisler, so I can't speak to the process that the petitioner used to gather the signatures. So the petition was, are you supportive of speed humps or something generally? I think the wording's actually in here. Actually, I'll read it. It is, dear owner, we are looking into asking the city to install speed bumps in our neighborhood. There's been a lot of speeding lately, and many neighbors have asked if we could get speed humps installed. The first step in this pursuit is to get a vote of the owners to present it to the city. And they said we need 43 owners voting yes to move forward. Not quite sure where that number comes from. And please read the following, cast your vote so we can determine. So they had a yes, I want speed bumps, and a no, I don't want speed bumps on this petition piece.
Okay.
So people could check whether they wanted it, yes or no. So those are submitted to us. I'll give you the tallies. So Bullara Drive, there are 25 total homes on that street, and there were 17 signatures in support, so that met the criteria. For the first criteria, which is basically, do you have enough signatures? Knights Branch Street, there were 15 total homes on this street, 11 signatures in support, so again, it met the criteria. Holly Ridge Place, there were 15 total homes on this street and 5 signatures in support, so it does not meet the standard of 50%. And then Kings Ridge Drive, 25 total homes on the street and 10 signatures in support, so Kings Ridge Drive also did not meet the standard. For the 2 streets that did meet the standard, the next step is to push it on to the police department and the engineering division to go ahead and do a traffic count, speed count of the neighborhoods, which were done. And what Brian alluded to is what we found of those 2 streets that we looked at that met the criteria, that Knights Branch, in fact, met the excess speed levels that were needed to justify putting in the speed humps, but Bullara Drive did not, based on the study they concluded. So that's where we are today, in answer to your question.
Okay. Is the speed, is the second criteria sufficient under our rules to negate the potential for Bullara, speed humps? In other words, if the citizens want it, the residents want it, but it doesn't necessarily does it have to meet both criteria in order for it to go in? Is the ordinance written that way?
It's a policy. It's not an ordinance, so it's a policy. So per the policy, it's ultimately, it's the council's discretion, I mean, any of this. But per the policy, because if you can imagine, this is a very common request. And so I believe council of the past, at some point, administration of the past, are trying to find a way to prepare some scientific reasoning to allow a process for people to follow. So based on that, that's where Brian did the study with the police department, and that's the scientific criteria that they use to say, well, it doesn't quite exceed what we would expect for a street, hence the reason why it wasn't recommended. Now, again, it's council's discretion. If you choose to go differently, you can. I would just caution that this is one request. We will get more of these requests, so.
What was the police data, do we know? Do you know off the top of your head?
In terms of,
Usually, was the number of cars going over the specific speed limit?
I have the 85th percentile is how we typically judge the speed limit.
Okay.
And that's DOT criteria when looking at a road.
Right.
And for Bullara Drive, it was 29 miles per hour was the 85th percentile, so 4 miles per hour over the speed limit. And Knights Branch Street was 41 miles per hour.
I'm sorry, 41?
41.
Okay, thank you. I'm good.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, thank you. If we approve humps on Knights Branch, and after a period of time, the traffic's gonna probably move to other streets like was indicated, can the neighbors go back and have the petition process again, or do we go back and do our own studies again to see if those other streets qualify?
So as part of our engineering review, we did consider that as well, and so we will go back and review what Holly Ridge Drive kind of looks like after we install the speed humps.
So if traffic does move to different roads, which it will, because it always does, then we can go back and reevaluate if Holly Ridge or Knights Branch needs any of those more traffic control.
We can, yes.
We can? Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Police Chief, Chief Albano. Excuse us, Mr. McCarthy. Good evening, sir.
One of the most important elements in that is, yes, we can, the equipment's there to do that, but it would have to be still approved unless you change the rule by the residents, because we're imposing this on the residents. If we do that, even if traffic moves, the residents have to speak. I mean, that's how we've always intended it before, so they would have to speak as well in support so that we could bring it back before council.
Thank you, Chief. Councilmember Fernandez.
So I think my concern is, one, are these speed humps actually effective at slowing traffic down? And because I think speeding is a really big issue. I mean, we see it, anybody who's out walking any of the interior Temple Terrace streets where the speed limit's 25 miles an hour sees people driving 40, 50 miles an hour. If you, Gillette, White Way, Druid Hills, any of the big feeder streets. So I understand the desire to try to calm the traffic down. I just want to make sure that this is actually an effective method to calm the traffic down.
Yes, speed humps are known to slow down traffic, again, as long as we're putting them 300 to 500 feet apart from one another.
So the way these are installed, just quick, instead of going all the way across the road as some of the other speed humps, the permanent ones are, these have that gap in the middle. Is that actually small enough to dissuade somebody from driving around the speed bump?
So the wheel track on average vehicles, I looked it up, was between 60 inches and 69 inches. For a fire truck, it's 75 inches is between the spacing of the wheels. And these speed cushions, their standard is 72, so it should theoretically capture all the SUVs, trucks, and vehicles other than a fire truck or an ambulance.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And also, just one thing, because if you live in Temple Terrace and you're watching this, you probably have experience with certain areas where we have put in these rubberized speed humps. And I think the conclusion that internally the staff has is some of the ones that we've used in the past aren't super effective. The version that Mr. McCarthy is proposing here is a little bit more robust as a speed hump, and I want to just make sure that everybody understands the most effective speed hump is the sort of paved speed hump, but that is also that requires a lot of work, and it's a street, it's costly, it's intensive. But what he did mention is when we come back and restore this road and repave this street, we will remove those rubber cushions and put into paved ones, which are, again, probably, as far as speed hump goes, the most effective of the speed hump sort of family, if you will.
Councilmember Schuster.
The 50,000 that's listed in the resolution, is that cover just the temporaries, or is that for the permanent?
It would cover both.
For both? For both.
We're estimating the temporary ones to be about $12,000, while a permanent one is somewhere between $20,000 to $30,000.
And any timetable, theoretical timetable on when the permanents would be installed? And what would they look like? Would they go across the whole street?
It would go across the whole street.
Okay.
But in terms of a timetable, we do have, I think it's Kingswood Drive within our 5-year resurfacing plan, so that would probably be the time that we would install the permanent speed humps.
Okay. All right. Okay, I'm good, thank you.
So why would the permanent ones go across the whole street as opposed to being formed like the temporary ones so the fire truck doesn't get slowed down?
One reason why I was looking at doing it across the entire width was mainly because Capwood is already done that way. It was just kind of mirroring the two neighborhoods. It doesn't mean that we can't do the permanent speed humps similar to the temporary ones to allow that emergency response to continue as needed.
Okay. Second question is, you said you measured wheelbases, and so I understand a fire truck's a massive vehicle. That's about as wide as you can get. It's like a heart bus. What about an ambulance?
I believe the ambulance was also in the same ballpark as a fire truck.
Okay. So how soon after the installation of these temporary ones on Knights Branch, how soon would you begin the traffic study on Bullara again and on Holly Ridge and maybe Kings Ridge to see if traffic in fact is going around? Now they're finding another route. Would that be done immediately, that traffic study?
Typically you wait 6 months to a year just to allow the traffic to kind of readjust. As Chief Albano mentioned, though, he was suggesting that if the policy continues, it's a recommendation by at least 50% of the homes for us to reevaluate it.
Okay. I mean, I'll defer to you as an engineer, but I think common sense tells me that it's very likely that many people who, I mean, if you're the kind of person who's speeding through this neighborhood, you're the kind of person that's going to say, oh no, there's speed bumps, I'm going to go this way instead, and that's not going to take 6 months to figure that out. Chief.
So with respect to traffic enforcement and your police officers being involved in this, it doesn't take a request for the speed bump process for us to get a call. When those go in, I can promise you some of our traffic enforcement areas to monitor is going to be that next road. If we see something, we're going to take action on it. We're going to write tickets. We're going to do what we have to do. But at the same time that these are going in and being installed, there's nothing that says that the interest can't be shared with the community who is going to be there living every day and to help that. And they can start that whole petition process if that's something that you're interested in getting back before you quickly. Otherwise, the stopgap would be that the officers would be out there and we would do what we can while we're going to the other various areas within the terrace that we're being called upon to monitor, to see if there is a problem that we can either directly address or we can put up signs and things to try to help them. The people that are the chronic offenders are going to continue, as you know, they're going to continue to do that. So that's kind of a stopgap that we could use to try to put the officers in the area to the extent that we can and that we have the availability, while at the same time allowing the community to say, hey, we accomplished this, we can do whatever it is that the community is looking to do here, or at least bring it back before council for a decision if we get these things in order now. And then once there's the data to support it, Brian can do his thing.
Thank you, Chief. Other questions? Remember, we're not in discussion, we're still in questions. I had to catch myself because I had some discussion, but any other questions for our city engineer?
Just one more final one. The one on Bullara that you talked about, which is not a plus, it's an X, okay? That would prevent it from going out onto Capwood. So it'd be on the east side of Knight's Branch as opposed to the west side for like the circle. It wouldn't cover that area, correct? Or the loop, or what do you want to call it? Can you put the?
I'm sorry, I thought you were pulling up the.
Oh.
Do you need that back up?
Yes, please. So the pluses were the proposed, and those were only along Knight's Branch, and then we had squares to kind of show the existing speed humps.
Okay, the square. As you come up Knight's Branch, you turn east on Bullara. They have a square, which.
Those are the existing speed humps that are already out there.
Oh, that's an existing speed hump on Bullara. Okay. Where would you theoretically put one on Bullara if it were to be approved?
I would probably look between Knight's Branch and Holly Ridge.
Knight's Branch and Hollywood. Okay, all right. That's you're pretty close to one anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Other questions? Very good. Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. All right, so is there a motion? And then I'm sure we'll have some discussion.
Move to approve the resolution approving speed humps on Knight's Branch.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Vice Mayor Chambers.
Okay, well, I've been in these speed bump meetings since it started in the 1980s as a staff member just in the back. And the city took a lot of time and a lot of meetings to develop this policy. And I think I'm going to support that policy with the findings that we have in front of us right now, because it took a lot of time to get to this. So I'm going to support the motion. I also think that as time goes, and not a lot of time, that we need to start looking at the traffic that is moved around. And I say that for not a lot of time. I really don't want to, it's me personally, I don't want to wait 6 months to a year to find out other animals or other incidents have happened. Want it sooner than later, but that's just me. So, but I will support this because it's taken a long time to get to this policy. I also like the double speed humps with the gap in the middle because that helps with our bicyclers to have room on both edges so you're not getting caught in the gutter and you have a middle to get your bicycle through. So I like that idea.
Very good. Other discussion? Councilmember Fernandez.
I'm also in favor of the policy that we have on the books. But I do have a question for maybe the police chief, and that is, if you are the person who speeds a lot in the neighborhood, you're very unlikely to sign a petition to request speed humps. So I think while I definitely would want a request to be generated by the people who actually live there in conjunction with the traffic data, I also recognize that there may be people who live on that street who would not ever agree to put speed humps because they are the people who are speeding. And it doesn't occur to them that they are.
So
I
we're
understand
going back to questions now?
Well, I'm just, it's just more of a comment,
I understand
so.
what you're saying, but the intent back in the day, and it's been refined since Councilmember Chambers talking about it in the 80s, it's been refined since then. The whole purpose in it is to give the community members that live on the segment of the roadway we're talking about a voice in it, because it's not just if you're a speeder and you don't want it. Some people don't want it.
Right.
And it gives the community, that's why I'm saying it would be beneficial if they start as soon as the other ones are in place. I wouldn't necessarily say start now, so that data is already there. They know what the threshold is. If they reach that threshold, they can go ahead and request. Once they're in, we're going to be monitoring it. And for me, it's just a matter of deploying the covert traffic analysis unit that we have and gathering the data. It gives me the numbers. I give them to engineering. Engineering looks at them, makes a decision, provides it to the city manager. It's not, it takes some time because of the process itself, but it's not like it's going to be extremely difficult to get those numbers to you in a reasonable amount of time. But I do think it's very important. And you're right, a speeder, a chronic speeder is never going to vote in favor of it, more than likely. But I think it's important for the process that we have to allow that voice to continue to be the what carries.
Yeah. That was it.
Other comments?
I'm in full support of the resolution. I'm in full support of the policy that the city has established. Where one of my kids lives, we have a temporary speed hump, but it's cut dramatically down on the volume of speeders and the speeds at which they're going. And where I lived before in Orange River, it only takes one little kid to run in front, and you're going too fast. It's beyond criminal that not doing this would represent. So I'm full support of it.
Any other discussion? Councilmember, Vice Mayor Chambers.
Yeah, thank you. So, when you talk about speed humps, the first speed hump ever in the city was on White Way Drive, and it was in front of my parents' house, and I grew up there. It does slow cars down, but it's noisy, especially when trucks with ladders in the back go over them and stuff, so that's why the neighbors have their choice, on the streets. That being said, again, I'm in support of this. I also think that if you're driving a silver Camaro somewhere, they ought to know a gray Camaro. You would think a colorblind person wouldn't tell that difference, but a gray Camaro should be watched by our police department chief. Anyway, so it also, a year ago, this council approved additional money for the police department to hire a traffic unit, additional police officers just to control traffic. We've looked at studies on traffic calming down Druid Hills and Gillette, millions of dollars to slow traffic down, extra money for police officers, all on which if our citizens would just go the speed limit and stop at stop signs. That's also, we're spending a lot of money when people can do it. The tall, skinny pedal on the right side of the floor isn't a switch. It's a rheostat. It doesn't just go off and on. You can go somewhere in the middle. So that's my speech. Sorry, it's not discussion, but that's a speech.
Thank you. So I'm in support of the motion as well, but I do have a couple of comments, and these are not meant as directives. These are comments that I would recommend that staff consider. First of all, I don't think we should change our policy. I think the policy is a good one. It takes into account the wishes of the residents, but it also takes into account the reality of the problem, because we would get requests like this from everybody every meeting. So there has to be a well-founded problem. So I think the policy is good. I do think, like I said, I'm not an engineer, but I do think some consideration should be given to preserving the gaps when you install the permanent speed humps. I agree consistency is important, but I can tell you if you're doing CPR on somebody and the ambulance is going over 4 speed humps and delayed by, however many seconds times 4, those seconds count. And so I really like the idea that I still don't know if an ambulance can totally straddle that thing, but they can at least partially straddle it. And because I have been in that situation, and I've also been a first responder trying to get somewhere, and you're going airborne every time you hit one of those speed humps. So I would also recommend, a recommendation only, that we begin monitoring the surrounding streets maybe sooner than we would normally do. Like, I get it, the manual might say 6 months to a year to allow a normalization of traffic patterns, but I don't think in this confined environment it's going to take that long for the new traffic patterns to develop. And I understand the police are going to monitor that, but with officers, but I also know that having that data is good. And the third thing I would propose, and I wouldn't recommend this in every neighborhood because we would be meeting every week, because I'm not throwing this out as a policy change for the city council, but I know since I've been on city council, speeding in this neighborhood has been brought to, and you know, I'm sure it's been going on much longer than that, but I know since I've been on council, this issue's been talked about. What I'm saying is, if the data that we gather after the installation of the temporary speed humps, if we gather data and it indicates that there's a problem has developed on Bullara or a problem has developed on Holly Ridge, which is very plausible, that we work with members of the community to say, okay, well, we don't wait for them to come to us and say, oh my gosh, you know, now we got people going 80 miles an hour down my street. We could say, okay, we have the data part of it, and maybe we take a little more comprehensive approach to this as opposed to, you know, dumping it on somebody who lives on Holly Ridge and then we got to find somebody who lives on King Ridge. Maybe we have a community meeting to address this and come up with a comprehensive approach. And then the community can go back to those streets and say, well, we're not going to impose this on you, but so you've got to you got to get the people. But at a community meeting, we could make these forms available too, and we could explain the data, we could put it up. We could say, look, this is what we're doing, but I'm just concerned that we're going to get in a whack-a-mole situation here, and we're just this street and then that street and then this street, and then I'd rather look at this holistically. So just some things to consider, if you would, please. Good? All right, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, no nays. We will get some temporary speed humps out there, but I'm sure that this is not probably the final word on this, but we will work with you. We are concerned about your well-being, and we will stick with you, and we'll get this figured out, all right? Thanks for being here. Okay, public hearing and second reading of Ordinance 1558, amending Chapter 20 of the Code entitled Traffic and Vehicles. I will open the public hearing, and our Business Relations Manager, Greg Pauley, is here to explain.
Good evening, everyone. Greg Pauley, Business Relations Manager. I have a quick slide presentation on the second reading tonight. This again is an amendment, amending Chapter 20, Section 20-3, to allow for the enforcement or the addition of electric vehicles. It adds a definition of electric vehicles. It adds a provision for parking enforcement for those spaces that are designated electric vehicle charging only. And it provides authority for the local police to issue a local parking ticket, the type that is traditionally left on the windshield of an automobile. Here is the definition that it adds to the ordinance. You can see here that it talks about a vehicle that is powered by one or more electric motors or a hybrid combination of electric and, I'm sorry, I went backwards by mistake. Hybrid combination of electric and internal combustion. And this is the actual section under item 12 that it adds to the existing ordinance. You can see here that the spaces are to be designated by signage and pavement markings as electric vehicle charging only, and only those vehicles that are utilizing shall be parked in those spaces, and they must be removed, relocated within 30 minutes following the charging cycle. And again, this is my very brief presentation on second reading. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Pauly. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, council member questions? Very good. If not, I will close the public hearing and ask the clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, amending Chapter 20 of the City of Temple Terrace Code of Ordinances entitled Traffic and Vehicles by revising Article 1, Section 20-3, subsection 3, entitled Parking, to add the definition of electric vehicle and regulations regarding parking for electric vehicles for charging only, providing for authority to codify, providing for repeal of ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion?
I move to approve Ordinance 1558 upon second reading.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion? Not. All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay sign? Okay, it's unanimous. The ordinance is adopted on second reading. Thank you, Mr. Pauly. Next item is a resolution approving the purchase of a 2024 Ford F-250 crew cab pickup truck. Our Public Works Director, Jason Warren Phelps, is here to explain. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Before you this evening, seeking approval of the resolution to purchase the 2024 Ford F-250 crew cab pickup truck for the Grounds Department to replace an existing vehicle. The existing vehicle is 21 years old, a little over 75,000 miles at the time of last service, becoming cost prohibitive to keep as a part of the fleet. This vehicle was originally a part of the new budget. The difference is with cost increases of the vehicle, it was budgeted at $55,000, and this purchase is $73,728.02, $18,728.02 over budget. Reason for that is this same vehicle was purchased 2 years ago by the Leisure Services. The vehicle itself, base vehicle, had an increase of, I want to say $16,000 on the base vehicle, and then the body style had an increase of $8,000, and that was the difference of what caused the overage. So that is what I have, and ready for any questions.
Thank you, sir. So we're replacing a 2002 Chevy 2500?
Correct.
Okay. Can't get more life out of that?
Another week.
They are every day, and it's yeah.
Very good. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? If not, council member questions. City Manager.
Just for the public watching at home, or actually anybody here in the audience as well, as the Public Works Director noted, the overage is being covered by the sale of old equipment. So we have old vehicles we're selling, so that's going to cover the overage. So I want the community to know, and the council obviously, that we're not taking cash from the budget to cover this overage. It's going to be basically utilizing our existing resources to do that.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Bia. If there are no questions, is there a motion?
Move to approve the purchase of the 2024 Ford F-250 crew cab pickup truck for the, as described.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Opposed? No nays. Resolution is adopted. Hopefully you'll get 20 years out of this one.
Hope so.
Next is a resolution, you won't, it's a Ford. Resolution approving the purchase of a 2025 Freightliner M2 and TL3 Lightning loader, and Mr. Warren Felds will explain.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before you to seek approval of the resolution to purchase the 2025 Freightliner M2 with the TL3 Lightning loader body. This vehicle, again, was a part of the current budget. It was budgeted at $215,000. It will be replacing a 2000 Sterling, so a 23-year-old truck. That vehicle has lived its life. It served in a reserve capacity for the past number of years, only for storms to be pulled out and utilized. The overages from what is budgeted to the current price is about $8,000, and that is due to the cost increase of the vehicle body and the body style. As the city manager indicated, The sale of the replacement vehicle will cover the overages. That vehicle is currently sitting at the auction site, so we expect to see that sale within 30 days. So, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Warrenfels. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? If not, council members, any questions? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion?
Move to approve the purchase of a 2025 Freightliner M2 and TL3 Lightning loader.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion on the motion.
I have a comment I'd like to make
Yes.
on the motion. This goes back, this exercise that we're going through is an example of why I raised a question several months ago regarding the purchasing reporting, if we will. And the comments were made, well, we budgeted it. Well, we budgeted, so that's our approval process. No, that's not our approval process. Our approval process is this. When we sit down and you get the opportunity to tell us you budgeted $215,000, it's this, and you're going to get what you need, because we're here to give you what you need to operate on. But we, as the financial stewards, we got to know what the differences were with the budget to this. It's not an indictment of the budget process. It is what it is. You, as you go to buy, that's when you get the finite numbers, and that's where we're responsible. And so this is the process working the way it's supposed to work. So even and I fully appreciate the dollar values for the bid process and everything else. So notwithstanding, but this is just strictly that we budget this a year ago, and we're now buying it later, and the price has gone up. So this gives us our opportunity to do our due diligence and ask the questions, and you guys know how to answer them. So I'm all in favor of it. It's the ideal time. This is when we're supposed to do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schistler. Other comments on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nays. The resolution is approved. Next is a resolution. You're expensive tonight.
Dang, boy.
Resolution approving the purchase of a 2024 Battle Motors LNT chassis recycling truck. Mr. Warrenfels will explain this too. How much is all this adding up to?
That's why they're separate. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So before you, I'm seeking approval of the resolution to purchase the 2024 Battle Motors LTN chassis recycling truck. This vehicle was also part of the budget and was spec'd out according to the measures that we need to serve the community for the recycling purposes. One of the downfalls of the way we do business in the recycling world is the body style is the trend, the outward trend. So this body style added to the number. It is what we need to function. It's how we currently operate. It matches the current fleet. So the additional of that added to about $37,000 extra, which was not anticipated in the budget process. So nothing wrong with that, but we did slim the truck down. There are no bells and whistles on this truck. The only addition that we added is a self-lubricating, which adds longevity to the components of the truck. So slimmed down, we got exactly what we needed on the bid process, and we budgeted at $335,000, and this came in at $372,996. It is replacing a 2006 model that is currently being prepped to go to the auction for sale to offset the cost of this one.
Thank you, Mr. Warrenfels. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this? Seeing none, council member questions.
I do have one.
Vice Mayor Chambers.
When do you think we're going to get the new truck? If approved in a few minutes, when do you think you're going to get the new truck?
So all of these vehicles have lead times 10 to 12 months. So we will not see these for a little while. So
What are we doing for recycling if the truck's being prepped for auction?
So currently, there are two trucks and a spare in the fleet. There were two spares. There's two trucks that run active, there are two spares. So one of the spares is going to be sent out for sale. That will let us with two active trucks and a spare. When this vehicle comes in, then we'll go back to having the two spares. The mechanics of these trucks is what requires them to have spares. I would like to get to a point where we only have one spare, but currently, we'll operate with one spare and we're good.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? I do. So the sale of this sold truck is gonna bring enough money to offset the overrun? I mean, that's a lot of money for a used truck. Is that what the expected income's gonna be from that?
Not individually, so as the city manager indicated, we have a few other vehicles that we're gonna send to offset these dollar amounts.
Okay, so collectively, it's not just this one is gonna bring $35,000 at auction?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Second question, you mentioned the body style and our style of operation, so this is the side load truck?
Correct.
So what is the new, are they rear loaders that other cities are using for recycling? What's the in vogue recycling truck look like now?
So it's a more automated with arms that reach out. So ours are manual. The guys get out of the truck, they grab the bins, and they toss the material into the side. So these are this is a manual operated truck to where the in is the automated.
But shouldn't this be cheaper? Because it doesn't have the claw.
The current in build is the automated. So they will, in the assembly line, put this on run, which makes it an exemption. So this body style is the old, so they basically have to go back and create an old body style and put it on it.
A one-off.
So it gets to be a one-off.
So the reason I asked that question is I know all about the automated trash trucks and all, because we went through this a couple years ago. But what are we going to do in the future with this moving forward? Are we just going to keep buying these trucks and having them made to the old style, or are we going to be exploring? I mean, we're going to buy this truck. It's not that, but do we need to change our strategy here?
So I can't speak exactly, and I'd have to defer to Mr. Warrenfeld's on the recycling trucks. On the trash truck side of it, my understanding is that due to our tree canopy,
right,
that was one of the issues why we didn't go to the automatic arm, because we need 14 feet of clearance, and then we don't get that in some of our streets.
Right.
I don't know if the recycling, I don't know what the clearance is on a recycling truck, if that's the same logic there or what.
Yeah, so it has a similar logic. With that arm that articulates over the top, you need some extra high clearances, and the bins are slightly different because the automated bins are slightly different from the regular bins that we use. So, no, going back to building this style, I think we'll get away from it. It's just a matter of when and what does our operation have to change to get there.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, if not, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays? Okay, very good, thank you. We didn't have a motion? Oh, my goodness, I'm sorry, folks.
Move to
We
approve
stepped-
the purchase of the 2024 Battle Motors LNT chassis recycling truck.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any nays? Okay, now the resolution is adopted. Thank you for catching that. Appreciate it. Cheryl would have caught that tomorrow and said, wait a minute, we got to have a do-over.
We caught it tonight.
So, next item is a resolution approving adjustments to the fiscal year 2024 budget. Assistant Finance Director Jennifer Newman is here to explain. Hi.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Council. So I'm here for the resolution approving adjustments to the fiscal year 2024 budget. When unbudgeted revenues and expenditures become known, the council is authorized to approve an amendment or an adjustment to the adopted budget for the fiscal year. So during the first quarter of fiscal year 2024, additional expenditures not included in the adopted fiscal year 2024 budget emerged. Unbudgeted revenues were identified to fund the expenditures, and a list of the proposed budget adjustments are included in Exhibit 1. To summarize, the needed adjustments are as follows. For the Curry Bowl demolition, an increase of $11,840 to the tax increment fund budget's contractual services budget to pay for the safe disposal of asbestos required to complete the Curry Bowl demolition in the Community Redevelopment Agency. The fiscal year 2024 budget includes a reserve for contingency expenditures of $351,138 to cover this increase. For the China Berry Booster Pump Station improvement, which was discussed at the last council, an increase of $909,620 to the Water Improvement Fund Building Improvement Budget to pay for additional expenditures to complete the China Berry Booster Pump Station. There is $800,000 already appropriated and being carried over from the fiscal year 2023 in the Water Utilities Renewal and Replacement Fund. Total cost to complete this project is $1,709,620. The fiscal year 2024 budget includes a reserve for contingency expenditures of $2,667,141. So the revenues and reserves for the Water Improvement Fund can come primarily from impact fees. And in fiscal year 2023 alone, the city collected over $1.7 million in water impact fees. Florida State Statutes 163.31801 states that local governments collecting impact fees must ensure that the impact fee is proportional and reasonably connected to or has a rational nexus with the expenditures of the funds collected and the benefits accruing to the new residential or non-residential construction. The city utility staff reviewed this language and determined that the China Berry project fits the appropriate use of the impact fees. This was also reviewed by our city auditor and the legal staff, who found no objections to the use of the Water Improvement Fund's impact fee revenue to help fund this particular project. Third is the Public Works truck replacement, an increase of $18,728 to the general fund's budget. Truck replacement expenditures to pay for an anticipated increase, which Jason just spoke about. And this increase will be matched by an increase of $18,728 to the general fund's budget sale of fixed assets. The sales will come from fully depreciated public works vehicles being prepared for auction. And finally, an increase of $46,093 to the sanitation fund budget's truck replacement expenditures to pay for the unanticipated increases that Jason also spoke about recently for the 2 sanitation trucks. These additional costs will also be matched from increases based on the sale of fixed assets from that department. So at this time, staff recommends the council adopt a resolution approving the amendment to the fiscal year 2024 budget, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mrs. Newman. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this? If not, council member questions.
I have a techie question.
All right.
That you're including the items from tonight in this amendment?
Yes.
So technically then, once we've done this, then then the resolution encumbers the funds?
No, we would still have to put in the encumbrance.
We still have to do the encumbrance?
Yeah, what this will do is allow us to do an amendment to the fiscal 2024
Okay.
budget.
All right.
And then we would also have to notify the state auditor that we amended the budget.
Okay, all right, cool. And then thank you for checking with Jeff. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I feel better with that. Okay. Well, that's all I had.
Other questions? Very good. If there are no questions, is there a motion?
Move to approve the budget adjustment for the 2024 budget fiscal year budget. Tongue-tied.
Motion is second. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nays. Resolution is adopted. Next item is a resolution adopting the real property inventory list. Community Development Director Michael Sherman is here to explain. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. So tonight we're going to discuss the Live Local Act property inventory list. And the Live Local Act actually was signed by the governor in last legislative session and became effective October 1 of this calendar year. Let me turn it on, that helps. Okay, so first I wanted to go back with a little general comments on what is the Live Local Act. And the Live Local Act, as I said, was passed in 2023. The last session is a comprehensive statewide workforce housing strategy, and it's designed to increase the availability and the attainability of affordable housing in the state of Florida. So as part of this act, in Chapter 166, local governments, municipalities, and counties needed to take a look at the inventory that they have of real property in the city and decide what is appropriate to be used for affordable housing. And Section 166, again, requires us October 1, 2023, and every 3 years after, to prepare this inventory list of real property. of property owned by the city to determine what's appropriate for affordable housing. Now, the statute's really vague on what that means, appropriate, and they pretty much leave that discretion up to the local government. So that was one of the challenges we had, was to take our list, look at it, and try to determine what might be appropriate for affordable housing. One thing that I wanted to let the council know, that the cities and counties who have properties that have been deemed for affordable housing can be used for, I believe it's six different uses. We can offer our land for long-term land lease, requiring the development and maintenance of affordable housing. We can offer the sale and use of the proceeds to purchase land and the development of affordable housing. We can offer for sale and use the proceeds to increase local government funds earmarked for affordable housing. We can sell with a restriction that requires the development of a property as permanent affordable housing. And we can donate to a nonprofit organization or otherwise make available for the production and preservation of permanent affordable housing. But really what this says is, if we sell property, if we lease property, if we dispose of municipal land for affordable housing, we have to use that money to put it back in to promote more affordable housing. So what we did is thanks to I wanted to give a shout out to our GIS staff. They provided us the list of 153 city-owned properties. So we went through that with the information they gave us and tried to come up with a criteria to determine what is appropriate. And so first we came up with the list, and this is what's on the list: the folio ID, the parcel, the size, the address, the full legal description of the property, the function of the property, what it's used for. Is it improved or unimproved? In that spreadsheet, you'll find information on the department that has jurisdiction for maintenance. And then we made a determination whether the staff felt this, based on the criteria we developed, whether this property was available or appropriate for affordable housing. So this is the map that we received from our engineering department, and everything in green shows city-owned properties within the municipal limits of the city of Temple Terrace. And you can see they're distributed throughout the city. So, and the criteria that I came up with, I looked at a number of criterion, and the first one I said, is the property used for infrastructure? It's just a yes or no. All of these are yes or no. Is it city park properties? Do the properties have direct access to the Hillsborough River? Are they dedicated to common open space? Do these parcels contain environmentally sensitive lands? Do they have city buildings on them? Are they part of the golf course or properties which support the use of the golf course? And are the properties located within the Community Redevelopment Agency? And this is kind of a snapshot of what we did as we went through this and trying to develop information on the parcel. So this was the first one that I pulled up, and as y'all can tell by the map, this is within the Community Redevelopment Agency. We have the parcel ID, the folio ID, the parcel ID, obviously the owner. Some of these have addresses, others don't. On the property appraiser's website, this is what they said for the site address. The full legal description is on the spreadsheet. The function, they're CRA properties, it's vacant, and this particular one is 0.13 acres. These properties, as you can see in the upper right on the parcel information, this is just one small lot in all those properties that are in the CRA that's adjacent to 56th Street. Here's another one we looked at. This is on the southeast part of the city. It's on Innica Drive. And I'll tell you, we really looked hard to try and find lands which would be appropriate. And this one excited us at first. And there are two parcels of land adjacent to each other, which came up to, I believe, about 6 acres. We then found out that this was slated for public works and infrastructure sometime in the future. So that took it off the list. This is another one. It's adjacent to the Hillsborough River. Again, the city of Temple Terrace owns it. It's about just under an acre. It provides direct access to the river, these properties, so we eliminated that. And the reason we eliminated the direct access is there's a couple of policies in the city's comprehensive plan that encourage the city to preserve access to the river for the public. And if this was built on with affordable housing, that access to the river would be diminished. So, This test here was for okay, that's for this one here. So we went through the test and asked the questions. Is it used for city infrastructure? Yes. It's not a city park. Does it have direct access to the Hillsborough River? It does. It's dedicated, is it dedicated to common open space? No. Does it contain environmentally sensitive lands? On the spreadsheet, it doesn't show that it is. It doesn't have any city buildings. It's not supporting the golf course, and it's not loaded in the CRA. And our approach was that any one of the individual criterion was tripped, then the parcel is not appropriate for affordable housing. So, based on the determination that we've come up with, there are no properties that we feel are appropriate for affordable housing at this time. I want to, remind the council that every 3 years we're going to look at that. So some of the parcels which we may say we plan on using for infrastructure or another use, that may change at that, within 3 years, and we can look at these properties again and see if there's any properties that the council would feel is appropriate for affordable housing. So our recommendation tonight is to pass a resolution that determines that at this time there's no appropriate properties under the Live Local Act for affordable housing. I wanted to create this last slide because I want to make sure that, I know the council knows, but I want to make sure that people in the audience and people who are watching this kind of understand that we're not saying affordable housing is not appropriate within the municipal limits of Temple Terrace. What we are saying, I'm saying under the Live Local Act, there's no city-owned properties which would be appropriate. And I wanted to list the stuff that we are doing at this time to help promote affordable housing in the city. We've got great partnerships with Habitat for Humanity. We've created 3 neighborhoods for affordable housing. Right now, we're going through a process to amend our land development code. And based on our last meeting, I believe we're going to adopt a section of the code to promote accessory dwelling units, which is a really great way to promote affordable housing. And I want to let, the city would, I would imagine, consider affordable housing projects, for example, in our downtown. It's just, I believe, inappropriate to tie it to the Live Local Act. So this was actually kind of a fun project to work on, and I'll try and answer any questions that the city council may have tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. Other members of the public who wish to comment on this? Council member questions. Councilmember Schisler.
One's a comment, I'm surprised, and the reason, you'll see why I'm asking this. I'm surprised that the source of the funding utilized to acquire the property is not a criteria for this analysis. And by the way, this is a really cool analysis. It was particularly with regard to the Inca Drive property. Now, I'm assuming that's at the end of Inca Drive, behind the fence, and it's kind of kind of sectioned off behind that warehouse.
It is, and it's right directly behind a neighborhood as well.
Yes. 20 years ago, maybe not even that long ago, the city tried to donate that property to Terrace Community Middle School. Within a week, we were sued by the residents on Allen Brook and some other individuals within the city. And if I remember correctly, it was because of the source of the funding utilized to acquire the property, the city didn't have the capacity to donate that property. And besides, you go back, I would recommend you go back there and take a look at it. There's like a 50-foot ravine. That was the old borrow pit for the railroad spur that went across there. I mean, you walk and it just drops straight down, and it borders on the other side of Allenbrook. So, I'm just surprised that the source of the funding for that was
I did not look in that as a criterion. I was mostly looking at the use of the property.
Okay.
But that would be something good maybe for the next 3-year window.
Just something you might want to put in the back of your mind, because that was the contention for the lawsuit back then, and we ended up having to give the property back, and it cost about $25,000 to settle that whole issue. So, but no, this is a good analysis. I like this.
Other questions? City Manager Bayo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to clarify something. It's something that we caught after this map was published. Mr. Sherman, could you go back to the map that shows the city properties, please?
Yes, sir, I could.
Okay, thank you. Just for the record, there's a property that's the furthest east on this map. You see it's right by the I-75 interchange near Fowler. That rectangle piece of property, it's listed on the Hillsborough County Property Appraisers as belonging to the city, but we've done some more due diligence and we realized that it no longer belongs to us. It was deeded to us by the Southwest Florida Water Management District years ago for a specific purpose, and there was a time frame of about 5 years for that purpose to be enacted. It wasn't, and so that property ultimately was conveyed back to the district, but it was never somehow recorded at the property appraiser. So we're trying to fix that at the property appraiser, but I want to make it clear that that map will be amended before it gets put on the city's website. From what you see here tonight, it will not have that property listed anymore.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay. Is there a motion?
Move to approve, to adopt the real property inventory list or the 2023 affordable housing inventory list.
Second.
Second?
Second.
Very good. Motion and a second, two of them actually. Is there any discussion on the motion? Councilmember Abel.
At first, I was really troubled by the conclusion that we don't have any appropriate parcels for affordable housing.
So was I.
And first of all, would like to thank the Community Development Department for how thorough they were in this. It's a lot of work, just going through all of that data. But also, I'd like to thank you for adding the information about what we are doing for affordable housing, because Temple Terrace is not against affordable housing. We would like to have affordable housing. It's just the criteria for this particular act contradicts some of the things that we need to get done. So I do appreciate your efforts in that, and we are going to continue to look for opportunities for affordable housing, even though it's not through this method.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Yeah, and I just got to say, this morning I attended the dedication of the 4 homes on Overlook Drive, Habitat for Humanity homes. That's the 3rd big project, and there were 2 houses before that. So we really have 4 areas in our city that have affordable housing homes through Habitat, and it was very good. So it's on the city's Facebook page, that dedication.
Very good. If there's no other discussion, all those in favor of the motion signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any nays? Thank you, Mr. Sherman. Any carryover council business? Okay, new business or board reports?
Okay. Meredith and I had the opportunity to attend it wasn't really like a graduation, but it was a recognition for 4 Focus Academy students, volunteers who had done significant amount of work with Feeding Tampa Bay. So we were there today, and Cheryl prepared some certificates of achievement, and I would just like to call out the 4 students who were awarded these: Justin Maidens, Shania, I'm just going to mess that up. Mahalo, Alexis Carrillo, and Ava Johnson. Councilman Louis Vieira was there also from the city of Tampa, and if you could have seen the look on these kids' faces when we gave it to them, each got their own certificate. It was like giving them $1 million, and Focus Academy is such an integral asset to the city, and just being down there was tremendous, because and one of them even gave a little speech. So I know how difficult that is for us, and I know it must have been even harder for her. But it was really a pleasure to represent the city down there, and it was really good. So I just want to put their names on the record, because they did a lot of hard work to get there. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, council member. Other new business or board reports? So one real quick brief thing, and I'm sure I'm going to pay the price for this, and I did not ask permission because I know what the answer would have been, but I want to congratulate council member Abel on her recent graduation from USF and attaining her Master's of Public Administration. So that's a significant accomplishment on top of all your other duties and all the things that you do. I don't know how you found time to do that, but so congratulations for that.
Thank you.
And that's all I have. City Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of council, I would just like to take a moment to thank everyone in the community, the city council, and particularly the 328. I keep using that number. I'm not even sure that number is exactly accurate, but it sounds good. The 328 employees for a great 2023. A lot of wonderful things were accomplished this year, and that's almost entirely due to the great team we have of associates that work for us. So I wish them all a wonderful holiday season, a great new year, as well as to the community, and thank you for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bia. City Attorney's report?
I have nothing to report, but I wanted to say happy holidays to everybody, staff, council, city manager.
Thank you, and same to you. Any other business to come before this body?
Wish everybody happy holidays.
Yes,
Happy
I'd
New
like
Year.
to wish all of you
Thank you.
happy holidays, safe holidays, and for those of you who have to work and those of you who have staffed, we do appreciate that. Some of us have been through that and can relate and understand the sacrifices that you make, so thank you.
I had a quick question, Mr.
Sure.
Chief. The covert surveillance, which car is that? Okay. I tried.
Very good. All right, everybody have a safe holiday, and we will stand adjourned.
Happy New Year.